We heard yesterday on a panelist of our producers here that Farm Bureau led that there's a lot of space in that for all kinds of producers, from what we would refer to as large or large scale agriculture to those who are more on the side of farm to table, local growers, those that work in that space. So again, lots of room at the table, if you will, to think about food and how we go about that. You know, food security is at the heart of all of it. Food is what we eat. It's how we produce it. It's essential to not only ourselves, but really to our planet's survival. And as we've heard from Jason Clay and Charlie Arnott, as they were with us a couple of days ago, you know, it's really about us all working together. It's a whole team of folks that really need to be thinking about this entire world of food, from the producer all the way to the table. The entire kinds of things we need to be talking about in health, in looking at supply chain management, at all the issues that affect agriculture from a global perspective as well, and the things that happen around the world and how it affects our food supply. You know, this morning I'll introduce Bill McKelvey, who will facilitate our All Things Missouri Food Security session. He is the Senior Project Support Coordinator with MU Extension in the Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security. He's chair of our Extension Food Systems Network. And yesterday, I might add that he received an award yesterday for his excellence, the Dave Baker Award here that we give out in MU Extension, and really excited for Bill and certainly deserving of that great recognition. The mission of the Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security is to help us understand better and address the causes and consequences of hunger and food insecurity. Bill has helped coordinate the development of an online application for the Missouri Hunger Atlas. So again, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Bill McKelvey, who will bring not only his expertise, but his knowledge, not only here in Missouri, but as he thinks about the food system around the world. So Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Marshall. I appreciate that introduction. Very happy to be here and very honored to be moderating this panel today. And I'm very glad that you all chose to join us to explore this important topic of food security. Marshall gave me an introduction, which I very much appreciate, and I thank him very much for that. We'll be talking about this topic today until about 10:30, and we're very happy that you're here. I do want to mention our session organizers. So there was a team that put this session together. They include Jamie Kleinsorge and Shay Morrison from the Center for Applied Research and Engagement Systems, or CARES, with MU Extension, Stephanie Femright and Sherry Grace from Missouri 4-H, part of MU Extension, Allison Copeland, Office of Engagement and Outreach with the University of Missouri System, Mary Hendrickson with our Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security and our Division of Applied Social Sciences at the University of Missouri, and myself. In terms of the overview for the session today, this session will explore the issue of food security from multiple levels and perspectives using an All Things Missouri story map and Ignite presentations by leading experts and advocates. The session also includes a 4-H Feeding Missouri call to action aimed at involving the expertise and drive of youth to help address hunger in local communities. In terms of our goals for today and what we hope you get out of this, first, we hope that you all will gain a better understanding of how data-informed actions can impact the food system. Second, we'll highlight how public and private food assistance programs help people in need. And finally, we'll share ideas and inspire action for building a more food secure Missouri. We'll start with a few definitions here. So to provide some background on this broad topic of food security, I'm going to run through some definitions and a few statistics before we get to the story map. So basically, when someone is food secure, they have no food access issues or limitations. They have enough food and enough of the right types of food to be healthy, to live a healthy lifestyle, to do all the things they want to do. When someone is considered marginally food secure, they may have very limited food access issues, and these are typically related to having anxiety over having enough food in the house to last them through the week or the month. The term low food security describes situations where people may technically have enough to eat, but they have to reduce the quality and the variety or the desirability of their diet. Very low food security describes situations where people have disrupted eating patterns and reduced food intake, and they truly do not have enough calories to be healthy. So where does Missouri stand in terms of food insecurity? From the recently published Feeding America Map the Meal Gap, we know that an estimated 11.4% of all people in Missouri are food insecure. An estimated 14.1% of children in Missouri are food insecure. There's quite a bit of variation from county to county across our state. When looking at food insecurity in children in particular, the range is as low as 6.3% in Osage County to a high of 33% in Pemiscot County. So we know that there is quite a bit of variation across our state. In terms of the impact of food insecurity, data shows that food insecurity can be damaging to a child's ability to learn and grow. In particular, children who are food insecure are more likely to have to repeat a grade in elementary school, experience developmental challenges in motor skills and language, and experience more social and behavioral problems. Likewise, food insecurity can lead to serious health complications in people of all ages, especially when people have to choose between paying for food and medicine or medical care. It also means that people are forced to make difficult decisions between paying for food and other necessities of life. Some examples here. From our recently published Food Assistance and Hunger in the Heartland report, which was conducted by our Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security and commissioned by Feeding Missouri and the Kansas Health Foundation, we found that 46% of Missouri food pantry clients had to choose between paying for food and paying for utilities. 38% had to choose between paying for food and medical care. 34% had to choose between paying for food and housing. 33% between paying for food and transportation. 7% between paying for food and education expenses. And 15% of those with children had to choose between paying for food and childcare. We also know that those who are food insecure are forced to use a number of coping strategies in order to make ends meet. From the same study, our Food Assistance and Hunger in the Heartland, 61% of food pantry client households in Missouri purchased the least expensive food in the past 12 months, even if it wasn't the healthiest option. 44% consumed food past its expiration date. 42% purchased food in dented or damaged packages. 21% sold or pawned personal items. And 18% watered down food and drinks. Addressing food insecurity obviously requires broad and cross-cutting collaborations that work at various levels. And so in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others, there really are no easy answers. So for the session today, we are adapting a framework from the University of Wisconsin and the Wisconsin Food Security Project to really frame and highlight activities that lead to solutions in different areas. This framework is referred to as the pillars of food security. Those pillars include economic, community, and workforce development. They include a resilient and accessible and affordable food system. They include our public food assistance programs. So these are typically federally funded. They include the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women and infants and children, and the National School Lunch Program, and a host of others. They also include the final pillar is our private food assistance programs. And so these are normally housed under things like food banks and food pantries and other meal programs that work in local communities to address hunger. So with that, and before we get to our invited guests to speak on each of these topics, we want to share some additional information and data in a story map format. So I will turn it over to Jamie Kleinsorge, Senior Project Coordinator and Associate Director of the Center for Applied Research and Engagement Systems, or CARES, with the University of Missouri Extension. Jamie will be walking us through a story map that was put together to bring this issue of food insecurity into focus through data and maps. All right, with that, Jamie, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Bill. I really appreciate that. And I'm so excited to be here with you guys today and sort of be helping to wrap up all of the wonderful things that we've heard about this week and tie that back to some of the data that we're able to look at related to the food system and food security. And then also really the slides that we're going to go through here are going to help inform and help you better understand also what our Ignite speakers are going to talk about as well. So very excited to join you all this morning. This story map is linked on the CVIT site. So if you wanted to follow along, you're welcome to click on that attendee hub and open the map and follow along with us as we go through here. Also, just as a quick housekeeping note, these story maps are awesome, but sometimes they don't always load. So if you feel like you're on a map and there's no data or something doesn't look right, try to reload it. Sometimes it takes 2 times. So yeah, kicking us off, we are talking about food security and food insecurity. So just as Bill described, those different levels of food security and food insecurity, we can start to see how that looks geographically across the state. So here, this map shows us much of what Bill was talking about earlier is where do we see the most vulnerable and the most food insecure populations. This map, you can see that the light blue, the whitish and light blue areas are areas or counties that are experiencing lower rates of food insecurity, whereas the counties in darker blue and purple, or maybe like a lavender and purple, those are counties where we see high rates of food insecurity. And so this is really just a nice map to get started, to kind of understand where those pockets are, to understand where the most vulnerable counties lie. And it gives us a little bit of insight into sort of the divide in our state as well. So we can see a pretty clear divide here between sort of the northern portions and the southern portions of our state. As we're thinking about those implementation and action strategies post-engagement week, we're going to need to think about what geographies that we focus on. These maps are interactive, so you're welcome to click any of the counties and you'll get more information. So for example, here we can click on Wayne County. We can see both the food insecurity rate for the total population there in Wayne County, and then we can also see that food insecurity rate for children. We do know that having access to good food and healthcare both are some of the biggest drivers of health for children. And so making sure that that food insecurity rate is decreasing for children is going to be very important for us over the next 5 to 10 years. So that is really the first map that we're looking at, like I mentioned, is just looking at sort of what food insecurity looks like by county in Missouri. So it gives us a better idea. I can click on one of these lighter counties and you can see, for example, within Howard County, we've got much lower rates, looking at around 10% and 12% in children. So I would encourage you to click on this map, look at your own county, see what those food insecurity rates look like, and also click on the counties around you. There's definitely a food system in play here, and so we're not just limited to our county and what's going on there. The next map that we're going to look at is really around food access. And so while food insecurity is really a definition that helps us define what a person is experiencing, we also can define food insecurity as access as well in terms of what is going on in a place. And so this map is a little busy, but it's because we're looking at two different factors here. And so we have it broken down into sort of looking at people who are considered to have low food access. As Bill mentioned, they have to reduce their quality or the variety of their diet. And then also places that are considered to have low food access. And places are considered to have low food access when distance or affordability limits access to those sources of healthy food. These are often called or referred to as food deserts. So you probably heard that term before. That term has actually been applied to childcare and broadband and other types of services. But really what food deserts are looking at are, do folks have adequate access to different types of retail food options? So that could include grocery stores, farmers markets, other types of supermarkets, convenience stores. Those all come into factor. And also when we're looking at places, we are obviously considering distance as well. So how far away are those things? Would you need to walk over a mountain to get to them? Or would you be able to drive or walk or bike there easily? So all of those things are factors that are considered. So we can see here on this map a couple of things. Many of the dark orange areas are going to be areas where we see people who are considered both low food access and low income. And they are represented by those darker orange colors. Something that's also represented in dark orange, and these two often overlap, are food deserts themselves. And we do have enough data over time now from these sources to be able to look at food desert change. And so anything that you see with sort of those hash marks on it are going to be new food deserts that were added, that were calculated and added in 2019. Areas in that darker orange are going to be food deserts that have been food deserts for a long time, that haven't changed since 2015 or before. And then we do have some blue areas there, again, where we saw that there were food deserts previously, but conditions have changed. Maybe there's a new supermarket, maybe there's additional access to food through other means. And so that calculation has changed it to not a food desert. So those are some of the ways to look at this map, to read this map. If we want to zoom into an area, for example, we could come back down here to the southern part of Missouri, and you can see that in an area like Wayne County, we have a couple of areas where we have very high rates of the percent of population that are both considered low income and low food access. So that's very high vulnerability there. We can also see that there are some areas in the south, also in Iron County, for example, where we've got a pretty large tract of food deserts, a large tract of a food desert as well. So again, I would encourage you to find your area. One thing that's different about this map compared to the last one is that it is available at the census tract level, which means that it's smaller than the county level. And this is really important for food security and for lots of other work to look at data at these smaller geographies, because oftentimes county level data will mask the conditions in those smaller communities and neighborhoods. And so being able to see these data at a census tract level versus the county level is very helpful, again, for us to think about how we're going to target our efforts in the future and to identify where those pockets of most vulnerable populations are. Anytime that you want to get back to sort of that full screen Missouri, you can click this little home button and it should take you all the way back to that full view of Missouri. So those are just a couple of really foundational base maps to understand, like I said, what is food security and insecurity, and then also what does food access look like in Missouri across all of our counties. Now I'm just going to remind you of those pillars that that Bill showed us just a few minutes ago, because each of these pillars we're able to view some data that are related to it, and they do give us additional information. And so we're going to go through each of these pillars, kind of exploring some related data, and then end with a little call to action at the end. So the first pillar is really around economic, community, and workforce development. So I have to say that obviously we could have found data for each of these, economic development, community development, workforce development. And we did in fact spend an entire story map last year on workforce development. So this could really be a session in and of itself, just talking about these pieces. But we did decide to look at economic, community, and workforce development as a group, to look at what's called the Social Vulnerability Index. And this is an index that's created by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, so CDC. And what they're really doing is they're taking a lot of different indicators, indicators related to employment, some related to income, education, and they bring those together to create a score. And so that's really what we're seeing here is those social vulnerability scores. As mentioned earlier, economic, community, and workforce development are critical to addressing the root causes of food insecurity. So we'll talk about some programs that kind of address the here and now, what's going on right now. But as we're thinking about strategies that are really going to shift people out of food insecurity situations long term, these are the factors that we're really going to need to focus on as long-term strategies. So again, what we can see here is the darker blue areas are areas that have been identified as having high rates of social vulnerability. So those are going to be places where income is low, and unemployment is high, educational attainment is low, those types of areas. This is again shown to us at the census tract level, so we're able to see a little bit more granularly what's happening below a county level. And we can see then those areas in yellow are areas where we have lower social vulnerability. And those are going to be areas that typically have, good employment. Their unemployment numbers are lower, educational attainment is higher, and incomes are also higher. And so you'll see as we go through these maps that there are some counties and some census tracts in Missouri where you're going to find those high rates of food insecurity. You're going to find high rates of low income and low food access. You're going to find food deserts. And then when you get to this map, you're also going to see that they are considered highly socially vulnerable. And again, as we're thinking about where we want to spend our time here over the next 5 to 10 years, those are the areas that we're really going to want to focus on, where we see high social vulnerability, and then also those food deserts as well. So as I did in the other maps, you're able to zoom into a county. I'm picking on Wayne County today, and click and get some additional information. Some of the additional information that's provided are those other indicators, right, that make up that social vulnerability index. And so we can see here unemployed, per capita income, folks over the age of 65, and then the overall rankings for each of the social vulnerability categories. So I think this is a really good map, just like I said, to be able to bring all of those different factors related to economic, community, and workforce development together, and be able to view sort of what impact they're making at a local level here in Missouri. Pillar 2 is really around resilient, accessible, and affordable food systems. And so I think one of the themes that we've heard this week, and some of the things that we've heard are related to what happened during COVID. And I think it really, the pandemic really showed us maybe how vulnerable our food system can be at times. And so, we can in some ways be thankful for what happened during the pandemic, because we have been able to really identify what some of those vulnerable points are, or areas where we could improve to be able to be more resilient, to create more accessible and affordable food systems. And so one of the responses that MU Extension had early in the pandemic pandemic was to create what was called the Missouri Food Finder, but is now Show Me Food. We just relaunched this site earlier this month or earlier in September. And really what this is it's a crowdsourced data tool where we're collecting information from local producers around the state about what kinds of foods and services that they're providing, where they're located. And then also we get a lot of other rich information about what days they're available, what are the purchasing options, what are the types of payments that are accepted, and then what types of food items are offered. And this map is really just one of many that helps us better understand what our food system actually looks like. So these are all pretty much small farms, small producers that are direct to consumer type of businesses, right? And so that is one example of our part of our food system. And I think that, you know, by continuing to grow this map and add more producers and be able to connect more people to local producers, we are going to be able to create a more accessible and more resilient food system in the state. There are other ways to look at food systems as well, like I mentioned. So this is just one of them. We had heard recently from other types of large farm operators. There's obviously restaurants and other grocery stores and supermarkets and those types of entities that make up our food system as well. So don't want you to think that this is the only representation of what's going on, but did want to point out though that we are currently accepting new farmers and other places to add to our map. So if you know somebody who's not on this map that is a food producer, we'd love to have them be added as well. You can also see here that it does know what types of payments are accepted. And so we heard on Tuesday from the Double Up Food Bucks program, which is very important to these types of local businesses as well. And so we're hoping to bring a lot of those connections together so it's easier for folks across Missouri who may be experiencing food insecurity to find local and accessible and affordable food. And not just have to rely on sort of big box stores or potentially chains. Moving on then to Pillar 3, we're looking at public food assistance programs. And I'm going to move over to my other map and see. There we go. So the joys of technology. Pillar number 3 is the public food assistance program. So like we were talking about, the SNAP, the WIC programs, other types of taxpayer supported public food assistance programs are really important to making sure that families don't fall even farther into, you know, a situation where they're experiencing food insecurity. They really do support families all across the state with access and affordability. And they also support our children as well. And so that's really what this map is looking at, is we're looking at 2 layers. Again, one of them is going to be households, the percent of households receiving SNAP benefits. And that's going to be that bottom layer that we see here in green and teal. We're also looking at dots on the map, and every one of those dots on the map represents a school in Missouri. And we are able to see by school what the free and reduced price lunch rate is. So free lunch or reduced lunch or free and reduced price lunch are types of programs that are offered to students all across Missouri, all across the nation. And we know how many of those students, based on income and usage, are eligible then to get free and reduced price lunch. And so you can see that some of the areas where we have those lighter yellow dots, we're going to see lower rates of eligibility. Versus some of those red dots or darker orange dots where we're going to see very high rates of free and reduced price lunch eligibility, meaning that a lot of kids are living in poverty, or they're probably potentially living in very high food insecurity situations. So as I zoom into this map again, we can see here that we can click the map and get more information about the number or the percent of households receiving SNAP benefits. So here we're looking at Iron County. We can see that around 14% of households in that area receive SNAP benefits. We can also look at the food or at the schools in that area as well. And we can see that there is a school here that looks like around 98% of students are eligible for free and reduced price lunch. So I think this is a very important map because it does show us how many folks are needing to take advantage of those public food assistance programs. And also then how many schools are also in needing that support from the public food assistance programs to make sure that children are getting adequate access to food, at least while they're at school. As you're thinking about, again, strategies to move forward, something to consider are areas here where we see high rates of households receiving SNAP benefits. So anything that we see in the lighter or darker green, and areas where we see those dark red dots. So anytime we see dark green and dark red together, those are going to be the areas, just like I showed here in Iron County, where we're going to have the highest possible, highest rates of vulnerability among both adults and children. And they would probably benefit from some programming or additional support around food security. Moving on to our fourth pillar, let me zoom back out here. We're looking at private food assistance programs. And our Ignite speakers are going to get into more detail about some of the public food assistance programs and private food assistance programs. So I really encourage you to, after you hear from our Ignite speakers, to come back and kind of look at these maps again and think about what you heard and how it impacts your view of these data. So here we're looking at private food assistance programs. So moving past those government assistance programs, we do also rely on so many private goods and services in order to, again, keep people out of that food insecurity population, or at least keep them towards, moving upwards out of it. So we see here that the private food assistance programs are primarily, we think about food banks, right, across the state, and then also the food pantries, and they make up a really robust network across the state. One thing to note here is that our food pantry list, those dots, the purple dots that we see on the map, it's a non-exhaustive list. There are pantries that are sort of, coming online and continuing to serve communities. There's mobile markets and mobile pantries. And so sometimes it's just hard to capture all of those all at once. And so we hopefully will get more updates on that food pantry list, but you can at least see some of the distribution currently across the state. One thing to note here is that it takes so much volunteer and sort of free labor, right, to make some of these things happen in the private food assistance world. We have a lot of volunteers and a lot of volunteer hours that go into opening and making the pantries available to folks. We have a lot of food bank distribution that requires a lot of volunteer hours to get things packaged, to get them out and transported to the food pantries. And so that's really what this map is showing us, is what that private food assistance network is looking like. We can click the map again and we can learn about what counties belong to what regional food banks. We can also see the average number of monthly volunteer hours per pantry, and also the average number of just actual volunteers themselves. And this will give us a better idea too of, again, what types of impacts or actions we can take to support both public and private food assistance programs as we move forward in our work to address food insecurity across the state. Finally, the last map that I want to show you guys is a consecutive map over the last couple of years, so 2020 through 2022. Our very own 4-H program has partnered with Feeding Missouri to collect and raise money for meals to feed families across Missouri. This is sort of a nice little friendly competition that happens county by county, 4-H club by 4-H club. The clubs have been collecting cash donations, they've been collecting food donations, and also volunteering their time at local food pantries and food banks. So the blue dots represent what happened in 2020. The light green dots represent what happened in 2021, and the dark green dots are showing what happened in 2022. So you can see that there's been some variable impacts from this program over time. We are hoping to raise over 800,000 more meals this year. So we'll see some more dots on the map coming to 2022. But basically, I think this is a very nice representation to show what counties are already engaging in this food insecurity work through the 4-H Feeding Missouri program. And some are having bigger impacts than others, and that's okay. But some counties aren't participating at all. And so I think that's another great way that we as Extension can start to support additional food security programs and strategies across the state, is making sure that all of our counties are participating in this Feeding Missouri initiative and collecting either cash donations or meals, or using their 4-H volunteers to go to the food pantries and the food banks and support the services that are being provided from there. You can again click on any county here on this map, and it'll give you an idea over the years, so you can see 2020, and then there's a little arrow up here that will walk you through each of the years, so we can see then pounds of food, volunteer hours, and then also any cash donations that were made by county. So I want to encourage everybody, again, like I said, after the Ignite speakers who go into more detail about many of these pillars, to come back and visit these maps. Feel free to reach out to CARES at any time and ask us questions about these data. If you do have questions or you want more information, we're always happy to provide that. I did want to mention that all of these data are also available on All Things Missouri. So if you go to allthingsmissouri.org and visit our map room, you can take some time to explore some of those economic and workforce development indicators or public food assistance programs. All of those things are available. And also, we are having a webinar on October 27th that is going to highlight some of those food layers as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Bill, and thank you all for the opportunity to share these data and hopefully provide a good data-informed foundation for the additional conversations that we're going to have around food insecurity. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie. That was very insightful, both in terms of providing a high-level overview and also getting into a lot of details. So thank you very much for that. We're going to shift gears here and move on to our Ignite speakers. So to help us take a deeper look at these issues and opportunities, we've invited experts to share their thoughts using an Ignite format. This means that each speaker will have exactly 5 minutes and 20 slides to share their take on our pillars of food security. And I really appreciate that our speakers have taken on this challenge. So these PowerPoints that they'll present will be on auto advance. So each slide is 15 seconds long. So they've really had to put some time and effort into thinking about their presentation and what they want to say. As a quick reminder, we're framing this around the pillars of food security. So you saw this map, or excuse me, you saw this graphic when I presented it earlier. This was in Jamie's presentation. You're seeing it again here. But this is just to remind you that We're framing this whole discussion around these pillars, and each of our speakers will be taking on one of these topics. Our speakers. First, we'll have Rob Russell, who is a Senior Program Director, University of Missouri Extension, Business and Communities Extension Program. Rob will help us understand how food and nutrition security are essential for economic, community, and workforce development. Next, we'll have Erica Williams, founder and executive director of A Red Circle, North St. Louis County. Erica will be talking about the ways that A Red Circle contributes to a resilient, accessible, and affordable food system. We'll also have Michelle Chapman Larson, Associate Director with the University of Missouri Extension Family Nutrition Education Program. Michelle will help us explore outreach efforts to help people access the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, an important public food assistance program. To wrap things up, Meredith Knopp, Board President of Feeding Missouri and President and CEO of the St. Louis Area Food Bank, will be talking about how private food assistance programs address food insecurity in Missouri and beyond. As I mentioned, each of these speakers will have about 5 minutes. Their slides will go on auto advance with the next slide. Our first speaker is Rob Russell. Rob, I want to make sure that you're ready to go here. When I click to the next slide, your slides will be on auto advance and it will be all yours. So all Rob, are you ready to go?
I think I'm ready to go here, Bill. So thank you all. And it's great to be here. As Bill mentioned, I'm the Senior Program Director for the Business and Communities Program, and I've been tasked to talk about food security and the linkages with economic, community, and workforce development.
Okay, very good, Rob. I'm going to press go. It's going to be all yours.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bill. All right, so as we talk about economic, community, workforce development, I spend my days thinking about images like this, right? I think about how do we bring more economic activity to the state, whether it's through manufacturing and the great jobs that are brought with manufacturing plants. How do we help Missouri manufacturers be more competitive? How do we do things that lead to economic growth in these sort of areas? We also think about it in some other ways, though. How do we help communities think about economic development? How do we help them think about growth? How do we help those processes move forward there in those different places? And so economic development is one of the key things that we talk about, but that doesn't really kind of tie us to food security a whole lot here for where we are. Bill, are we advancing here? It feels like I've been way over 15 seconds. So.
Yeah, good question. When we tested it, we were advancing. I will advance to your next slide.
Okay, sounds good then. All right, we also talk about this in the context, though, of value add and how do we think about taking commodities that we have in the state. And you've heard a lot about this, and our partners in the Ag Business Program think a lot about this. How do we add value to the production of what we are doing? How do we capture more of the value of what goes to market? We think about it from a community perspective then of how do we increase vitality? How do we get neighborhoods that look like this? How do we help our cities and our places be locations where people want to live? And that's an important conversation also. We think about it in the context of starting a small business and how do we help people start businesses, and how do we help those businesses grow? And how do we make sure that we have a diversity of small businesses around the state? And of course, then we think about this also in the context of workforce development and workforce training, and how do we make sure that Missourians have the skills that are necessary to meet the workforce needs in the future. But a lot of what we do operates under a basic presumption. It operates under the basic presumption that people are food secure. That because you aren't thinking about starting a business, you aren't thinking about workforce training if your basic needs are not being met. And so much of what we do relies upon people having access to food, having other needs being met. As I talked to a colleague, they said, if you aren't food secure, you're not thinking about training programs. We know that in Missouri, the prevalence of food insecurity is high. We've talked about that already, but it means that there are hundreds of thousands of households in the state that are food insecure, and that means that there are a lot of Missourians in that place. We know that food security is a workforce issue, and that workers who experience hunger as a child both have impacts on themselves, but that means our overall workforce is less able to meet the needs going forward also within this sort of space. We talk about hunger and the ability of a person to be a part of a productive workforce and contribute to economic growth. We know that that is a limit on that. And we know that there's a cultural aspect to this also, that when people are hungry, when they are not food secure, when their basic needs are not being met, that culturally, and this is a statement I heard from in the state of Missouri within the last month here, for folks that are insecure, that are vulnerable, that culturally, it changes how you think about the future and what you do, because there is no future, there is no past. It's about surviving today for folks. And so how do we tackle this? Oftentimes we'll think about this in the context of, that food security can lead to economic growth, but economic growth can also lead to food security. So if we invest in programs that lead to economic growth, that will enhance our food security. And there certainly is an effect in this area, but the research out there demonstrates continually that there's a greater impact of making sure that people are food secure and then that leads to economic growth than the other way around. To put it simply, if you help somebody become secure in their food choices or their food, then that leads to a higher outcome than if you just focus on economic growth. We know that the best way to do this, then we see this in other countries also, and we've seen it in our own country here, that investing in rural infrastructure, ag research extension, and price increases and things like that improves our food supply and distribution, which has a whole lot of great effects, right? It can not only reduces hunger and improves nutrition, but it leads to a surplus production. It allows people to think about skill development. It allows people to increase their incomes, which is all of what leads to economic growth. And I'll just conclude here then with kind of a brief thing. What we see on the left happened during the pandemic, right? And that is work. We don't talk about it as work. We don't measure it as work, but sitting in a line to get food, taking that out of your day as work. And it doesn't allow us then to think about those other things that are key towards going forward and starting businesses and workforce training there. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Rob. That was excellent. And thank you for taking the challenge. I do want to mention, and I could have prefaced this earlier, we will have a Q&A with each, including the Ignite speakers, directly after the last Ignite speaker. So we've reserved around 10 to 15 minutes to take your questions. So please enter your questions through the Event Hub, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can following this Ignite session. Again, thank you, Rob. I greatly appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move on to our next speaker, Erica Williams from A Red Circle. We'll be talking about things that are happening in St. Louis and North St. Louis County around building a resilient, accessible, and affordable food system. Erica, I assume that when I click to the next slide, it will just auto advance, but if we have to regroup and do things manually, we can do that as well. So, Erica,
all right.
Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to click go here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to leave my camera off because my Zoom was a little laggy, but I am Erica Williams, and we are in North St. Louis County, which is north of North St. Louis City, so slightly different geographic region, and we are going to be opening a grocery store in our region in this beautiful building that you see called the North County Community Nexus. Oh, and that's me. So that way you get to see how I look. That's just my camera's off. So I started A Red Circle in 2017 to address racial disparities in North St. Louis County, one of which ended up being the lack of healthy food access. So A Red Circle's mission is to promote community betterment in North County. I appreciated the maps that the speaker talked about earlier, the county level and the census tract level, because in St. Louis County, it's kind of hard to see how North County actually fits in with some of the food insecurity work. A few of our programs are listed here: mutual aid, education work, parent cafes, Good Food Fridays, our healthy community market, and our farm. So on this map, this is talking about the low income, low access area in North St. Louis County. The dark green is shows that that area is very high in low access of healthy food work. And so what is the North County Community Nexus? What will that be? That's going to be a new building that's going to be a central hub for health and wellness in North County. The grocery store, locally owned health and wellness spaces, education space, We'll have space to do things like rental assistance clinics, Medicaid enrollment, nutrition classes, a demonstration garden, all types of fun things. So that's the proposed site. As you can see there, we'll not only sell food through, with local farmers, local producers, local, jams and jellies and things like that. We'll have cold storage for farmers, a demonstration garden, and we'll have a bistro that will allow people to have a healthy lunch and dinner offering. Our headquarters will also move into this space. And so I'll be there along with our team, and we'll have an arts gallery there. We'll do other things like I mentioned earlier, parent cafe, multi-purpose spaces for people to come and do, small cooking demonstrations and things of that nature. Because oftentimes when there's this place that people have low income and low access, it's not just, you can't just give people a box of vegetables. You have to actually help, ease people into the healthy food system. So how will the Nexus impact North County? It will increase food access, support our local food system through jobs and economic development, helping our local farmers, and it will help us grow a red circle. So this, I forgot the slide was in there. We actually made this up for a fundraiser, but you can see this is what we have so far and what we're trying to do to buy the building and to, make this an actual reality. So I am excited, and I thank you, Bill, for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, Erica. We appreciate you being here, and we're very excited to see how your Nexus progresses over the years. Okay, moving on to our next speaker. Michelle Chapman Larson is with our very own University of Missouri Extension Family Nutrition Education Program. We've asked Michelle to talk about one part of our public food assistance safety net, the SNAP program, and in particular, to talk about some of the activities related to MU Extension as it relates to SNAP outreach and helping people receive SNAP assistance. So, Michelle, are you ready?
I am, Bill. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to click go here and it'll be all yours.
Okay. 5 years ago, the University of Missouri embarked on a journey and partnered with the Department of Social Services to assist Missourians with signing up for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program to receive SNAP benefits. The first year, the goal was to help 500 Missourians receive the supplemental nutrition benefits. Nutrition programming associates would do what they do best, and they would extend into the communities. During the first year, NPAs assisted 498 people across the state of Missouri with signing up for the benefits, while attending over 200 exhibits. Moving forward, during the last 5 years, NPAs have been challenged with a higher goal of reaching more Missourians. In fiscal year 2021, NPAs assisted almost 1,200 Missourians with applying for SNAP benefits. The Family Nutrition Education Program has partnered with many agencies to make sure we're reaching all of the people that we can. What does SNAP outreach look like across the state of Missouri? The Northwest region is made up of 20 counties. Julie Meek is an NPA that serves Caldwell and Clinton counties. She has assisted more than 38 local community members with signing up for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Julie, like many others in the state, have developed great relationships with the health departments and school districts in her county. Julie also attends health fairs and back-to-school fairs. The Northeast region is made up of 19 counties. Sarah Woodrow, an NPA, serves Marion, Pike, and Ross County. Sarah has created a partnership with the Salvation Army and the Northeast Community Action Coalition. Like other NPAs, you can find Sarah at health fairs and other community events. Moving to Central Missouri, the West Central region is made of 17 counties. Debbie Doty, a nutrition programming associate, serves Henry and St. Clair County. Debbie works closely with WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, Compass Health, West Central Community Action Agency, Mobile Food Distribution Sites, and State Fair Community College. Debbie makes sure her sites know she can assist in person, online, over the phone, and contact-free if desired. Debbie has assisted over 80 people in the 2 counties she serves. Now we enter East Central. Heather Warren is an NPA that serves Callaway, Gasconade, and Montgomery counties. Heather works with several agencies that she has programmed with, doing both direct and indirect education. She has open conversations and stops frequently to remind them of her ability to assist community members. Heather works with local food pantries, WIC clinics, and the Northeast Community Action Corporation, as well as soup kitchens, senior housing facilities, senior centers, Head Start, and local school districts. Heather has assisted over 45 people with signing up for benefits. Traveling further south in the Southwest region, the Southwest region is comprised of 20 counties. NPA Amanda McCormick serves Stone and Taney County. Amanda has assisted more than 80 families this year to apply for benefits. Amanda has a very unique and successful partnership with OCAC, Ozarks Area Community Action Corporation. OCAC provides Amanda with additional office space to meet with their clients and assist them, as they were also benefiting from other resources provided. In our Southeast region, we have 18 counties. NPA Paula Cates serves Mississippi County. She finds success in assisting people at the local food pantries, health departments, and other locations with adult audiences. You have to go where the adults are. So Paula has assisted more than 14 people with the signing up for SNAP benefits this year. While Missouri offers a lot of rural areas, you can also find 2 large urban regions. Urban West is comprised of 3 counties, including Kansas City. Monica Hoff, NPA in Jackson County, has been working with the Blue Valley Salvation Army for the past 5 years. She also spends time working with the Hispanic community at the senior community and local food pantries. Monica has worked with over 20 families, assisting them with signing up for SNAP benefits. Lastly, Urban East, which is made up of 3 counties and the city of St. Louis. NPA Ashley Hamilton serves Jefferson County. While Ashley has only been with Extension since the beginning of 2022, she has already assisted more than 25 people with applying for benefits. Ashley assists most of her applicants at back-to-school fairs, but also receives calls at her county office and assists people over the phone. Double Up Food Bucks is a great program promoted throughout the state, working with farmers markets and grocery stores. So let's talk about the key takeaway. When local people are able to purchase local foods, create a healthier, more balanced lifestyle, our communities and the people in our communities benefit. The University of Missouri is partnered with the Department of Social Services to work with low-income families and to help their food dollars stretch. So, do you or anyone you know need more money for food each month? You now know someone local that can help you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle. That was excellent. Appreciate that overview and deep dive. Remind folks to put your questions into the event hub. We'll be doing a Q&A after our next presenter, who is Meredith Knopp. Meredith will be shedding some light on private food assistance programs, and in particular, Feeding Missouri, St. Louis Food Bank, and the other regional food banks in Missouri. So Meredith, are you ready?
Let's roll.
All right, thank you. Going to press go.
All right, so I'm here to talk about Feeding Missouri. You've heard this a couple times throughout our presentation today. It's a combination of the 6 largest regional food banks that literally cover every county in our great state, all 114 counties, distributing over 240 million pounds of food annually across this network. We're part of our larger network called Feeding America that you may have heard of. Feeding America is located in Chicago. It is a conglomerate of 200 food banks all across the United States. You can see some of the dots, and in some states like Montana, where there's one, they cover the whole state. So it's a big, big group and network of 200 food banks, 60,000 food pantries and meal programs, where we're taking surplus food, bringing it to our food banks and distributing it to the 1 in 7 Americans struggling with food insecurity. Here's the map of the state of Missouri and the 6 food banks color-coded. Some food banks, like the St. Louis Area Food Bank, also serve counties in Illinois, as does Harvesters. It also serves counties in Kansas. There's also a misconception between food banks and food pantries. So the banks, you can see, we're like the Amazon warehouses. We are getting all of that food, where our food pantries are the ones on the front lines distributing food each and every day. We play a critical role. As you can see, we have a lot of food that is going to really not only supplement, but provide. 54% of households saying at least half of their food came from their local food pantries. We get our food from a variety of sources. We get it from farmers, growers, retailers, grocery stores, community food drives, the USDA, as well as surplus food from restaurants and markets, as well as farmers markets. You can see that Missouri families are continuing to struggle. We saw some great slides from Jamie earlier, where you talk about households with children experiencing job losses. We talk about inflation and the cost of food. A new report out today, prices continue to skyrocket. And the problem is, when you're food insecure, that leads to stress and other issues in your lives, which is going to lead to health issues, disease issues, add more expenses in terms of healthcare. Again, problems with food security. You can see here the prices and the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, in all categories. Blue is year over year, February 21 to 22 versus the 20-year average. Statewide, we're working to collaborate with statewide partnerships. We're educating and advocating with our legislators. We're coordinating efforts, as well as participating in that SNAP outreach program that Michelle just talked about, a great way to help families. Here at the St. Louis Area Food Bank, we're focusing on three things. The first is nourishing people. How do we get food in the hands of people who need them? We're focusing on equitable access for all Missourians in our region. We're focusing on education. And then we're empowering communities. Our partner agency network, almost 600 food pantries and program partners helping us do this work, with a real focus on health and wellness for a nutritionally secure Missouri. Finally, we're transforming systems, broadening our horizons to look and collaborate with other organizations, looking at data, expending volunteer opportunities, and really trying to isolate root causes of food insecurity. We're focusing here in St. Louis on innovations and evolution with programs with our farmers markets, using data, new programs with school markets and food on the move, being much, much more than just a traditional food bank as people have gotten to know us. These are some of the pictures of those programs. Our Food on the Move is a mobile tractor trailer providing free food to people in food desert areas, our school markets, as well as some of our mobile distributions, as well as walk-up food distributions. We can't do this without our volunteers. Here in St. Louis, over 24,000 individuals each year come and help us with this work, the equivalent of 20 full-time employees. So again, this is just St. Louis data. Take all of this data, extrapolate it across the 6 Missouri food banks, and you can clearly see that there is a very, very strong network of support across the state of Missouri to really help make a difference in the lives of those who are struggling with food insecurity. And as we always like to say here at the St. Louis Area Food Bank, hunger can affect anyone, but anyone can affect hunger. So we ask people to donate, to volunteer, to do food drives, and get involved in truly making a difference. Thanks, Bill.
Excellent job, Meredith. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so at this point, we're going to transition into a short Q&A. As I mentioned, we've set aside approximately 15 minutes for this Q&A. Mary Hendrickson, in our Division of Applied Social Sciences and Director of our Interdisciplinary Center for Food Security, has volunteered to look at the questions, to track the questions, to wrangle the questions, as they say, and as they come in, and then to ask those questions to the speakers. So Mary, are you ready with the first question? You'll need to unmute.
I am. Sorry about that. There's been many questions about Jamie's presentation in particular. And the first one is, where can folks find this, all of these great maps that Jamie was showing and so on. And then, Jamie, there's a couple of other questions about how to actually use the maps. Can you edit the view on the maps to show just one of the examples? And then there are some questions about the size of like the pantry dots. Are there some reasons for differences in size on those pantry dots?
Yeah, thank you so much for those questions. So first and foremost, you can go, like I said, to All Things Missouri and to our map room. If you type in the word food in the search bar for the map room, you're going to get about 200 and some odd layers that are both current and historical related to food security and insecurity. And so that is a great place to start, especially if you're interested in sort of diving deeper or looking at conditions that are unique to your area, your community. The second question about modifying the story map that I showed today, no, that's not possible in the story map. That's really just kind of a foundational piece that you can use to, walk through the pillars and some other aspects of what we talked about today. That modification piece, though, can happen again on All Things Missouri in our map room. You can limit it to just showing households receiving SNAP or just food insecurity there as well, and make a more targeted, narrow-looking map as well. The food pantry dots, I will be absolutely honest and tell you that I think I just made a mistake. They should all be the same size. So we'll update that and make sure that they're all the same size. But the meal, that last slide around meals, you can see sort of the difference in sizes there. And that does correspond to the number of meals that have been collected by 4-H Feeding Missouri. But the food pantry dots are just an oversight on my part. So thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. I'm going to go to a question for Rob now. And this is really one of my questions, but there's something coming in about economic development and food security. So my question is, how can the food system, like the economic development aspects of the food system, actually address or be a part of the solution to food security, like the chefs, the farmers, and so on? What can they do to address food security?
That's a great question, Mary. I think a lot of it is, as we've heard this week here, how do we make sure that the surplus that we have is getting to the places that it's needed there? How do we ensure that people are being provided what they need at the workforce and things like that? Also, how are we giving time for folks to if it's to go to a food pantry or to get things like that to help offset that, making sure that there's time there, because what we see a lot of times is that there becomes a point where the choice is made between access to food or being at work or being at a training program or things like that. And oftentimes the research that we're doing some research right now looking at mortality amongst the workforce. And some of what is coming up with that amongst prime age workforce folks. So we're talking about people who should be in the workforce that are experiencing a lot of illness and actually death due to these issues. And a lot of it comes back. One of the key things is food access and security that a lot of this population is facing. And so, from an economic development perspective, we don't talk about this in an economic development term, right? And that's sort of where it's starting out. We think about business starts, we think about people going through training programs, that sort of stuff, but we don't talk about food security as an economic development issue, and it is. And therefore, when we frame it like that and we think about how do we get access to food for folks, then then with an economic imperative, it's something that we can move forward on there. So again, a lot of it's how do we structure things though, and how do we make sure that what we have is accessible at times where people need them so that they don't have to make choices. And that's food security. And then I guess the other thing I would say is making sure that those surplus that's out there, and there are a lot of great programs that do this now, but making sure that the surplus that is out there is finding its way to populations that need it. I lived in Iowa City, and there was a great nonprofit next to an office that I worked in. That was their whole thing was taking food that was going to be thrown out from restaurants, grocery stores, and things like that, and making sure it got then to places where people could consume it and would have that in their diet. And it was instead of it being thrown out at that point in time. So.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. And Meredith, the next couple of questions are for you. Got some questions about food pantries and food banks. So curious if food banks are still experiencing higher numbers of families needing assistance, and what does that look like? And then also there's some questions about practical things. Can you address why local food pantries might be limiting protein? And then another one is, what are about the expiration dates? Does that mean food is unsafe to eat or stuff like that? So I'll let you take it away.
Sure. So thanks for those. So I'll try to remember in order, but keep me honest. So the short answer is yes. Food banks and food pantries are still seeing elevated levels of need. Across the state of Missouri, we're seeing everything from 5% to about 25%. Here in St. Louis, we're still about 17% higher than we were pre-pandemic. And numbers continue to rise because of inflation. The price of food is going up. There's new reports that just came out this morning. It is hitting families. All of us on this call are paying more for food. We are not exempt. And it is really hard if you are on a fixed income. We have a lot of seniors, we have a lot of retirees, we have a lot of people potentially on disability. So it really, really hits that food budget. So they're coming to see the food pantries and the food banks for support. In terms of SNAP assistance, yes, many food banks do offer SNAP assistance. If you do have questions on that, we can put emails and contact in the chat. We have a whole team here in St. Louis that if you're not in our region, we can definitely connect you with our counterparts to get support and services. And I know Michelle and her team also have some great connections there as well. So we'll diversify the network to make sure we're including everyone there. Food expiration dates. Oh my goodness. Yes. Number one question on the board. Just because something says best by or best if used by, for example, today being October 13th, does not mean it is poisonous tomorrow. Please stop throwing away food. There are whole lots of websites out there, from the USDA to a Stop Food Waste to Eating Well, that give you real good guidance that says, ground meat and poultry, usually 1 or 2 days, beef 3 to 5 days. Eggs is 3 to 5 days, Pat. There's some things you can do with eggs that we can talk about later, but shelf stable products can be for 2 to 5 years past that best by date. So please, please, please stop throwing away food. It is not poisonous tomorrow if it's best by today. Promise. How'd I do? What'd I miss?
Great. And then is there any reason why food pantries might be limiting protein?
Yes, that is a supply chain issue. So that has nothing more to do with the fact that it is harder and harder to acquire certain types of food, and protein is one of them. So here in Feeding Missouri, we were gratefully able to receive a grant to actually source protein, but now our food sourcers are actually having trouble finding places to purchase protein. And so some of that is literally just supply chain and supply and demand. So we're working through it. A lot of food banks, we get our food from grocers and retailers. So if you can't buy it on the stock shelves at your local grocer, it's not getting donated to our food banks and food pantries.
Thank you, Meredith. I appreciate that. And the questions are rolling in, so I'm going to pop right over. Erica, I want to ask a question. What kind of feedback are you getting from your community members about your work in Pine Lawn? Are they receptive? Are they curious? Are they hesitant? What's going on with that?
Oh, the feedback has been amazing. So we have an urban farm in Pine Lawn that last year we were able to grow potatoes and herbs. This year we grew probably about 500% more food, all types of different food, over 1,000 pounds of food. And we started hosting something called Good Food Fridays to get the food into the hands of residents. And we get people coming from as far as Illinois to Baldwin in St. Louis County, West St. Louis County, and all over Pine Lawn and all over North County. And so the reception is, not only is it great that people are coming back, and they're excited about being able to plan their meals around this good farm fresh food. And so they're really excited about the incoming grocery store that I mentioned in my presentation. And so it's just been really fun and exciting. Kids are coming by and getting fruit off the trees, and just things that we didn't see beforehand.
Great, Erica. We have a couple of questions about the SNAP outreach program, Michelle. And if you could answer, how are extension staff helping enroll applications, and who do you contact if you want to get help in that?
Absolutely. In every county office, we have a nutrition programming associate or someone that serves that county in the role of nutrition programming associate. And so if you go into, if the county offices can help you, the NPAs are able to assist actually helping fill out the application. We've had people come in before, that cannot read, but they're not going to say, I can't read. They're going to say, I just need some help filling this out. I don't understand. And so just being able to take the time to connect with the community, to engage, and meet people kind of where they're at. The local offices are great. The food pantries and banks are great. And we do partner very closely and have great relationships with them. We can just meet them at a different location and provide a little bit of one-on-one assistance. We have a direct state contact. So if people are experiencing problems with receiving information about their benefits, that we can connect with. And so that has been a great asset. And so I would say your local office and find an NPA, they can help assist anyone to sign up for benefits. Did you have a second question?
Well, one for that you and both Meredith can probably address is what are some of the stigmas and so on that people are experiencing? They won't apply for SNAP, they won't go to the food pantry, they won't go to senior nutrition sites. So do you have any suggestions on that, both Meredith and Michelle?
I'll start out by just saying with Extension, our job is to build relationships with people. A lot of times if I have to walk into an office and say, I need help, it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to ask for help. With the pandemic, we've seen a larger group of people that do need the resources. Maybe they didn't qualify before, but just having those people out in the communities, talking about the education that we offer, or being able to cook with them, being able to prepare recipes with them, being able to give them information that's beyond I need assistance, so they can build those relationships and build that trust. And then they're a lot easier to go to someone and say, I really do need that help.
Yeah, and I'll just add Feeding Missouri. So feedingmissouri.org. That is a statewide resource that anyone can go there for SNAP assistance. There's a SNAP phone number that people can call and speak to a live human to get help there. But also to just, plus one on what Michelle said, it is hard to ask for help. Stigmas are real. People don't want to be seen going into a food pantry. We deal with seniors. They say, it's like, oh no, I'm fine. I don't need food stamps. They don't want to do that. So we are spending a lot of time, as Michelle said, building those relationships, investing in programs and opportunities like our school markets. We have another partnership that we're doing now with DoorDash, where we're actually able to deliver food to the homes of our seniors. And they don't know that it's coming from a food pantry or a food bank. It looks like you just ordered your lunch for the day. So again, ways to ensure we're treating everyone with the dignity and respect that they need. And again, we learned, just as Michelle stated, during the pandemic and now with inflation, how many Missourians are just that one life event away from needing assistance. And so we always want to make sure that we are talking to people, we are innovating, we are meeting them where they need us to meet them, to ensure that we are absolutely ensuring they don't suffer in silence. They're getting the nutrition that they need to live healthy and active lifestyles. And again, with that dignity and respect they deserve, because you might be the one helping someone today and you might need help yourself tomorrow.
Well, great, Meredith. We're going to transition out of the question and answers now, except I have one last question for Meredith before I turn it back over to Bill. And that is, kind of what does the food bank of the future look like? And I'll try to answer some of the other questions on CVent.
Sure. So I think, food banks are innovating. We've gone away from just these logistics giants that know how to bring in food and distribute it. And we're really focusing on outcomes. We're focusing in on treating the root causes of food insecurity. We're focusing in on nutrition and health and wellness. So in the future, you will see a lot more collaboration, a lot more bringing people to the table to have those conversations to address other causal effects and other situations that people are struggling with. You saw the slides that Bill shared about having to choose between food and medicine, food and utilities, food and rent, food and transportation, in childcare. If you're going to really solve for food insecurity, you have to also have conversations about all of these other opportunities that exist in the lives of Missourians to really transform their lives.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Meredith, for that response. And thanks, Mary, for your question wrangling. And thanks to everyone who answered questions. And thanks to everybody who asked questions. We really appreciate the interaction and the dialogue. This is a perfect segue to our 4-H Feeding Missouri call to action. I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Femright, Interim Assistant Director for Statewide Youth Development, to share some details about this exciting initiative. Stephanie.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. It is a pleasure to be with you this morning. The mission of Missouri 4-H is to offer all youth the opportunity to become a 4-H member while advancing the field of youth development. We serve over 58,000 youth across Missouri with the support of 7,000 volunteers through various delivery models. Our delivery models include community clubs, which 4-H has been known for over the past century. Youth are also actively engaged in innovative and evolving school enrichment programs, after-school clubs, and special interest clubs, which we fondly call spin clubs. Regardless of how youth engage in 4-H, our youth development professionals assess and develop programs and experiences to meet the needs of youth, families, and communities with the support and engagement of volunteers and partners. And programs and experiences often center around career and college pathways, STEM, and healthy living. 4 years ago, Missouri 4-H began a collective effort to address food insecurity. I'd like to share with you a short video highlighting some of our 4-H members and their work through the 4-H Feeding Initiative.
"62% of teachers say their children come in hungry.
20% of food insecure families are not eligible for government assistance.
Nearly half of all food stamp recipients are children.
1 in 5 children go hungry at some point during the year.
4 years ago, research and awareness of food insecurity affecting youth and families across the state prompted the statewide 4-H Feeding Missouri initiative. This program collaborates with Feeding Missouri, a coalition of Missouri's 6 major food banks that work to provide hunger relief to every county in the state and the city of St. Louis. Through a coordinated network of more than 1,500 community-based feeding programs and the efforts of 4-H clubs and communities, 1 million meals have been raised so far through cash contributions and food drives.
We work with local school districts in our area to help the kids who rely on schools for meals during the regular week. Within this program, we help pack lunches for kids to take home over the weekend so that they have a reliable source of food.
Not only is it important to donate food, it's also important to donate your time at your local food pantry. This past year, we have donated our time by working at this food pantry. We have organized and sorted food as well as distributed it, and we've helped clean up with minor maintenance.
We're gonna donate food to the local food bank. We put food in backpacks. We collected food.
This year, in partnership with Extension and Engagement Week, All Things Food, 4-H is challenging you to join in making a bigger impact on food insecurity in your local communities and across the state. Start today to make plans on how you can serve Missourians by educating others about food insecurity, or plan an event to collect cash contributions or food. Help us in food insecurity now.
So that is just a great representation of some of our 4-H members, and actually a video that some of our counties put together this past year as part of the Feeding for Missouri. So if we have talked about frequently throughout our time together that food insecurity impacts 1 in 8 Americans. Recent data from the USDA shows that 11.5% of Missouri households experienced food insecurity in 2020. When families have to decide between paying for essentials like utilities, medical care, or housing, they often turn to food pantries and food banks to support themselves and their families. In 2018, Missouri 4-H teamed up with Feeding Missouri to bring awareness to the issue of food insecurity and encourage 4-H members and volunteers and their families to take action in their communities to fight hunger. Missouri Farmers Care joined our effort in 2019 as we joined the Drive to Feed Missouri. In 2020, the Hogs for Hunger program began. Hogs for Hunger is a program that helps 4-H and FFA members donate their hogs as a source of protein to Missouri's food banks. Over the past 4 years, 4-H Feeding Missouri has raised over 1 million meals through monetary and food donations. And that brings us to today and our collective efforts during Extension and Engagement Week to better understand food security and food insecurity. Over the past several days, we have gathered and learned together about food insecurity across Missouri. And we hope that you have thought of ways that you can best serve Missouri to feed our communities sustainably. This year, in partnership with Extension and Engagement Week, All Things Food, 4-H is inviting you to join in making a bigger impact on food insecurity in your local communities and across the state. We hope to raise 800,000 meals between now and May 2023. And to do that, we will need your help. 4-H has an easy way for you and your network to be part of the solution to reducing hunger. And as I move to our website, I encourage you to continue to put your questions into the CVent app, and we'll have a brief Q&A after this session to answer those questions. On your screen, you will see a screenshot of the 4-H Feeding Missouri website, and our link is at the bottom. On this site, you will see various resources and information to help you support your efforts. And you can begin today with the simple of sharing social media posts. And on our page, we have a link where you can find pre-made images and copy and paste sample text for your post, or you can share posts from Missouri 4-H or the MU Extension Facebook pages. While donations are needed, education on food insecurity is also important. And we encourage you to consider short presentations at existing programs or seeking new opportunities to share about food systems and contributing to food security and the awareness of food insecurity. Connect with your local 4-H groups to learn about their plans for the 4-H Feeding Missouri Drive that will begin in January to help promote their efforts in your educational presentations and social media. You can find information from county extension offices both on the MU Extension page as well as on the Missouri 4-H page. Work with 4-H to plan events with members, volunteers, and stakeholders in your community. And that can be to educate, to volunteer time, or to raise money or collect donations. All efforts, educational, volunteer, and donations made between now and May 2023 will contribute to the greater goal of Extension and Engagement Week with Missouri 4-H. We encourage you to report as you go, and the Qualtrics link is now live on our website, where you found underneath the January-April section. Whether you collect donations locally or through Feeding Missouri, all efforts will contribute to our greater goal of 800,000 meals. In January, 4-H will begin its friendly county competition. From January to April, 4-H clubs and county programs will report their work to educate and collect donations as part of the 4-H Feeding Missouri effort. A formula is used to calculate the number of meals that those efforts have generated. The county that raises the most meals will receive a monetary donation towards their efforts the following year. Monetary donations significantly impact private food assistance programs such as local food pantries and organizations such as Feeding Missouri that support regional food banks. For every $1 that is raised, food banks can turn that into 10 meals. Donations through Feeding Missouri can be sent through the website, text, or collected locally. To be included, I want to ensure you that in the extension engagement efforts, monetary donations do not have to come through Feeding Missouri. Donations can stay locally with your local food pantries or organizations. Still please include those efforts in our reporting links so that we can share that as our greater story. Don't forget to celebrate. We invite you to join Missouri 4-H on May 31st that morning, as we will have a live presentation on our Facebook page to share the results of the 4-H Feeding Missouri County competition. Also on our website, you will find additional resources to support you as you develop educational programs and planning events. 800,000 meals may seem like a lot. However, we have already made progress. Dr. Marshall Stewart shared with us on Tuesday that the Missouri 100, a group that advises and assists the system president, has donated $10,000 to each of our 4 university campuses to support their student food pantries. Add in the donations from Hogs for Hunger from the 2022 Missouri State Fair, we have already raised 416,560 meals, and that puts us closer to our goal. So we are already halfway there. Missouri 4-H has a presence in each county and the city of St. Louis. We invite you to connect with your 4-H staff and faculty in your community to address food insecurity through education and monetary and donation drives. Our 4-H faculty and staff are ready to partner and connect with you. Stay in touch, or we will continue to stay in touch over the next several months, as you will be receiving communication via email with how you register for today, as we will share additional resources as well as progress on our goals. We hope that you will join in our call to action to impact families across Missouri and decrease food insecurity. We'll take a moment to answer some questions. Sherry Grace is going to help me today wrangle those questions.
Hi, Stephanie. We've got several questions coming in. It says, for groups hosting food drives, is there a handout or guidance provided that suggests food items for donations, items that are most needed, well received, etc., as well as items that add nutritional value?
I would say, go ahead, Meredith. Yeah, no, it's okay. Meredith, we'll tag team here. Absolutely. So I would say some of that is going to be a local question on what some of your local organizations and food banks need. So Meredith, if maybe you've got something that from the Feeding Missouri that is more uniform.
Yeah, so people can look at feedingmissouri.org, or they can go on to their local food bank. Here in St. Louis, we have an updated list of the best items to donate. So I will tell you, canned protein, so meats, fish, peanut butter, canned fruits and vegetables, juices, chilies, soups, rice, pasta. We also have personal care items, feminine care products, baby care, household essentials. You can go to any of those websites, but anything that you will have in your pantries are things that people will need. And keeping in mind that a lot of those items I just mentioned, people cannot use their SNAP or WIC dollars to purchase. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Meredith. Sherry, I'm going to make a note that we can include that in the follow-up emails that we send out to the group.
We also have something similar to that already in the resources, but hers sounds a little more detailed, so we will have that.
Perfect.
Nothing else is coming in. Okay. If our county shows no current participation in the food drive, who is the point of contact to get that started?
So start with your local extension office. Every county has a 4-H specialist assigned to it, if not also a 4-H YPA. So check with your local office to see what and there may be efforts already underway. We've been working on this as a 4-H team for a couple of months, so they're ready to connect.
All right, I don't see any more current questions that have come in specifically about 4-H. I believe we've had questions a little bit earlier that were not answered. So let's see here. Nope, I think maybe they've all been answered unless Meredith looks like she might have something. No. Sorry about that, Meredith.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And if you have additional questions, please go ahead and put them in the event app, and we will definitely address those later on. And again, look for additional resources and communication to come. So Bill, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for sharing information about that important call to action. So we're going to move into the final stretch here and wrap up this session. I'm very thankful to all of our speakers, so Rob, Erica, Michelle, and Meredith, for taking the challenge to be part of this session and to accept the Ignite challenge that we gave you. You did an excellent job. All of the planners for this session, very grateful for their assistance and contribution as well. And also for all of you that have tuned in. Appreciate your questions. You know, for me, this session has really reinforced this idea that addressing issues of food security really requires action at all levels. You know, there's really no one solution that will fix the problem. But if we look at these different levels, we look at different approaches, and we find ways to take action not only at the community level, but at higher levels as well, we can begin to make progress on this issue. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Marshall Stewart. He's going to close out the session for us. He has a few remarks and a couple of slides here, and then we will move on with our morning. So Dr. Stewart, hold on just a second here. I didn't have the right slide queued up for you. I'm almost there though. I know where it is. How about that?
All right, Bill, we'll let you drive the slides. That looks good to me. So let me say, first of all, thank you to Bill and the panelists for what a wonderful conversation this morning. I appreciate not only our folks that work in MU Extension and the University of Missouri, but our partners like the Food Bank, for instance. Wonderful comments, and thank you for the great work you do as we do it in partnership. As Bill, you just said, this is not going to be just one solution. It's not just one group. It's all of us working together. You know, I reflect on some of the big ideas that we talk about within the University of Missouri Extension engagement, and we really focus on the areas of the economy, education, health. And you cannot have a thriving economy locally or at any level. You will not have educational excellence at any level, and you will not have good health at any level if people are food insecure. So food is so fundamental to all that we do. And I'm excited about the food drive with our community partners, especially Feeding Missouri and Missouri Farmers Care and the drive to feed kids. When we started that program a few years ago, I was actually pretty involved in that with our 4-H program, and did some video work and other things to get that going. But I just really think this speaks to this idea of how we serve Missouri and deliver Mizzou. And whether it be specifically within a 4-H program or some other part that we're in, we all need to do what we can do to ensure that every man, woman, child in this country has the benefit of the greatest food and agricultural system ever to be on planet Earth found here in this country. And I do find that we need to continue to strive to figure out a way to make sure that this world, no less this country, no less Missouri, is food secure at every level. It's a simple goal, but it's a big goal. So how do we do that? Well, we do that to ensure everyone has that nutrition, they have access, they have affordability. We do it through contributions. We do it through economic development. We do it through all kinds of ways. And whatever that way may be for you, find that way that you can help with this, because this is something that binds us all together. I have yet to find anyone in my experiences with people all over this country and all over this world that does not have a feeling for people that don't have good nutrition and don't have adequate access to that. There is a need for that. We find it continues here again among so many different populations, and we need to ensure that we do our work in that space. So the question is, at the heart of everything we've talked about over the last few days, is as we've explored these issues and tried to figure out how do we have this great food system, this distribution, all the things that make it work, and yet have it with knowing that there's only so much water, so much land, there's only so many things we have access to. How do we do that? And I've been really pleased with the way I've seen the agricultural industry in this state through so many ways step forward to be a part of that conversation, whether it be whatever segment of ag, the larger ag scale or the smaller ag scale. People have been very involved, very engaged in that conversation. And I'm proud to be a part of that food system and that agricultural system that is Missouri's #1 industry. We've made a commitment in University of Missouri Extension and really with the state of Missouri to double our commitment and our value that we have in agriculture by the year 2030. That's a big goal. But by doing it in lots of ways, whether it be how we produce food, how we process food, how we distribute food, how we connect it in different ways, reduce food waste, etc., we can find ways to do that. And it's all about us pulling together toward one common goal to ensure that at the end of the day that people are well fed. We must rely on our land-grant university institution, the University of Missouri, and our partners across the system that also take on the land-grant mantle and believe very much in the land-grant idea. So whether it be Missouri S&T, UMKC, UMSL, or Mizzou, we're all committed to doing that in any way we can across 114 counties in the city of St. Louis. We are going to include new players and ideas and get more people involved. And that's where you come in, because you can help us do that. You can help us find those ways that we can engage and find new partners to help us get this job done so that we can someday say that Missouri, hopefully the country, but certainly Missouri, is totally food secure. It's an opportunity for Missourians to step forward and show leadership. It's an opportunity for us to figure out a way to empower Missourians across this state and our nation and globe to ensure, again, that we are doing what we can do to benefit not only ourselves, but those we work alongside of every day. Please remember that Extension Engagement Week is a highlight of a year-long special focus, and the conversation doesn't end here. I invite you to attend this morning's poster session to learn about initiatives underway as well as Next Gen Discovery series about human and soil health at noon. We will continue positioning our work in this crucial area during more food systems sessions this November and in February and in April. So Extension and Engagement Week may be a week that we focus it, but it really goes on throughout the year. Please be sure to register for those future sessions and be a part of the continuing conversation as we build toward our 2023 focus on our youth. Yes, we're going to focus on young people next year, and I look forward to that as a youth development professional and somebody who spent my life, for the most part of my life, much of my life in youth development. I look forward to the focus we can have in 2023 on youth. Our youth must be central to all our work, and certainly they are central to the grand challenges that we look to solve as we improve their lives and the opportunities for their future success. We do remind you to fill out your surveys for each session. In the overall Extension Engagement Week, we thank you for being a part of making our 2022 Extension Engagement Week a success. And again, we look forward to this continuing conversation about food, all things Missouri, as we serve Missouri and deliver the University of Missouri.